Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Spotlight podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of bringing you Jamie Love. Jamie, welcome. Unmute yourself, please, and come on in.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Dorit. So, my story starts before I was even born, but little did I know that my quest for the fountain of youth was going to lead me to my journey of self love. So, before I was born, my mom felt an aversion to meat when she became pregnant with me. So, she decided to go vegan during my entire pregnancy. And then, funny enough, I've had a strong aversion to meat since birth. My parents would try to give me a bite of meat as a toddler, and I would throw up. My mom took me to the doctor, and she was really concerned. But ultimately, the doctor said, like, she's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. And, I grew up only eating dairy, fish, and eggs, but I couldn't stomach any sort of beef, pork, or chicken. Even looking at it or smelling it just kind of made me gag. Growing up, I had numerous health issues such as childhood asthma, skin infections like impetigo. I had strep throat, pink eye. I got scarlet fever twice. I had chicken pox, chronic constipation my whole life, up until I went raw basically, and poor digestion. So my childhood, I feel like I was a really unique child, very spiritual from a young age. I think when I was about 4 or 5, I would contemplate life and ask questions about why we're here. Something about being in this body on this earth just felt really strange, and I knew there was a purpose for everything. My parents would brush it off and tell me not to think about such things and just to enjoy being a kid. I started having spiritual experiences, very vivid dreams of other worlds. Somehow, I also felt that I could heal people with my hands, and I would practice Reiki on my mom before I ever even learned about energy healing. I made my dad buy me all kinds of books about like psychic abilities and different dimensions and the supernatural. And I had an ear for music and singing ever since I was 4 and would hear music playing in my head. And I dreamed of becoming a singer. I grew up Catholic, and would question the things that I was taught. So I was very determined to understand the truth, even from a really young age. And I just had this great feeling that I had a purpose to make an impact in the world. I just didn't know exactly what that purpose was. My mom was the kind of woman that prioritized her looks and her beauty. She wore a lot of makeup and had, different plastic surgery procedures. She would spend hours getting all dressed up and wouldn't leave the house unless she had lipstick on. At the time, I wanted to be like her and the other women in my family. So feeling beautiful and looking good became really important to me. So that's when I started exercising when I was around 12. But, I lost my way during my adolescent years. I started smoking and drinking, doing drugs, skipping school, sneaking out of the house. I even experienced with psychedelics and had more spiritual experiences that gave me a very unique perspective on life that I had never understood before. But when I got to high school, I really began to thrive. I started modeling, I did beauty pageants, joined school clubs. I got signed to a local record label and recorded my own songs and performed all over town. I started making straight A's, graduated with a 3.9 GPA, earned a 2-year scholarship to community college where I got an associate's degree in film production. So I produced my own music video, which was aired on local television. I was interviewed by local newspaper magazines, featured on a TV news segment. It was around this time that I really felt a calling to come to California, probably when I was in high school. So as I got older, though, I experienced other health problems, such as rosacea on my face, acne. I had really bad bloating. I always had, like, no matter how thin I was, I always had like this bloating belly. I suffered from depression. I had really bad, like, hormonal anger issues, problems focusing, lethargy, brain fog. One day, I think I was like 17, I was driving in the car and I almost fell asleep at the wheel. I was just so tired. I had no energy, even in my teenage years. So I started to put on weight and was developing, it was like the pre-stages of developing on, the onset of type 2 diabetes, which was kind of scary at such a young age. My family was Italian, so I grew up eating a lot of bread, pasta, junk food, dairy, processed things. our family traditions revolved around food. Every single gathering was always, what are we eating? What's for the meal? The more we ate, the more loved and accepted we felt. I would eat to the point of sickness on holidays like Christmas and Thanksgiving and have to force myself to throw up just to feel relief. Not that I was bulimic or anything, but it was like we just didn't know when to stop. And it was like I either threw up or I was going to really feel sick. So I developed all kinds of insecurities, and those turned into eating disorders. So, such as food addiction and binge eating. And I no longer wanted my life to revolve around food, but at the same time, I didn't really know how to make the change. But then my aunt was diagnosed with cancer, and my mom started researching everything she could on health, trying to find a natural cure to help her. She started reading to me. We were both inspired to go vegan. We started juicing every morning together, and this is when I started fasting and implementing enemas into my lifestyle. My health started to improve tremendously. Then I met my first husband, and I shortly became pregnant with my son. I was so excited to be a mom. I didn't mind putting my dreams and aspirations aside. My husband got a deployment job in California, of all places, the place that I was really called to go. And we moved all the way from Florida to a small town 2 hours from Los Angeles. I ended up falling off the vegan diet and my health went downhill again. I had gained 50 pounds with my first pregnancy and 60 pounds with my second. And then after my second child, I was like really disgusted with myself. I just couldn't believe that I had allowed myself to get to that point. So I was really desperate to change my health. And that's when I saw Dr. Furman's book, Eat to Live, on television segment. I bought the book, I read it, I followed his strict vegan diet with no oil, no salt, no sugar, no refined carbohydrates. Not only did I lose 15 pounds in 3 weeks, but my skin and my eyes were glowing with health. I'd never even seen that much health glowing up from my eyes. They were so bright, my skin was glowing. It was then that I first saw a video of Annette Larkins on the news. She was in her 60s and looked like she was in her 30s. This was the first time I've ever seen anything like this before. I didn't even know that this was possible. This marked the beginning of my quest for the fountain of youth. I learned about the raw food diet and I learned that you can reverse and even slow down aging. I knew in my heart that this was the lifestyle for me. I wanted to look amazing in my 60s, 70s, and beyond. And I didn't want to suffer with health problems in my older years like my family members did. So I went raw overnight. I read more books. I learned how to make raw foods. I grew sprouts. I juiced every day, implemented detox therapies into my lifestyle. I expelled toxins, cleaned my liver, did liver cleanses. The excess felt melted off. I was shining with more vitality than ever. I started to look younger and more beautiful. I started to change my lifestyle habits and incorporated facial yoga into my routine. My confidence started to soar. I became more spiritual and had more vivid dreams. I started to feel subtle energies and ended up getting my Reiki energy healing certification. I understood how the mind, body, and spirit are all connected. And as you know, I cleaned my body, my mind started to detox, my emotions started to detox. So I just kept getting lighter. I started meditating, having lucid dreams, out of body experiences. And then I discovered Eckankar, and my life really started to change at that point. I felt amazing, and I started to connect back to my purpose in life. I sold Arbonne for a short time and learned about the dangers of using chemicals on my skin. This is when I stopped using chemicals and decided I wanted to look beautiful and have radiant skin naturally from the inside out without needing makeup or plastic surgery. That was my main goal. I just wanted to have beautiful glowing skin without needing to cover anything up. So I attended an Arbonne convention where the women on stage were inspiring a crowd of 15,000 people. I literally began crying and a fire was just lit up in my heart. I didn't know why or how, but I knew that one day I would be on a stage inspiring thousands of people. I saw visions of the highest and best versions of myself. But then the vision slowly faded away. I went back to my simple life in a small town, but I knew that I was meant for more and that I didn't want to live an average life. So my first experience with raw foods lasted 8 months before I went back to eating cooked food. I became depressed and unfulfilled. I started having panic attacks almost daily. There was a point where I could not even drive my car without having a panic attack. And then I, started developing other forms of mental illness, and I could feel that my life just wasn't in alignment with my highest truth. I went to therapy, I tried antidepressants, nothing was helping. But then I went for a run one day, and I just had this realization that I just didn't want to be married to my husband anymore. And I just knew that being with him was not taking me on the path that I was meant to be. And I experienced heartbreak and a messy divorce, lost my house. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I became a single mom living on child support, taking care of my two small children. And then I learned about the law of attraction from a friend of mine. I ended up manifesting a beautiful home in a gorgeous neighborhood and found my soulmate who was on the other side of the country with the help of divine intervention. That's a whole story for another day. It's so beautiful. Then one day, the day we met is the day that I quit drinking and really made a commitment to not go out and party and go to bars and things like that. Even just socially with friends, it wasn't a lifestyle that I wanted anymore. So my soulmate moved to California to be with me, and we ended up raising my kids for 2 years together. We shut ourselves off from the world while doing very deep spiritual healing and growth while using different tools and modalities. I uncovered the darkest parts of myself through shadow work, and it wasn't pretty. I had so much pain and suffering inside of me that was just being brought to the surface. I uncovered so much anger and self-hatred. I had to work through my addictions and my negative mindset. I could barely look at myself in the mirror without getting angry and feeling hatred toward myself. I was ashamed of the person that I was and the way I had treated people throughout my life. I started reciting affirmations for what I wanted to create in my life and for the woman that I wanted to be. My soulmate guided me through the process of healing, and I started to transform into a new person. I noticed that through my growth, I noticed that my growth always happened in cycles of 3 stages. This for me personally. I don't know if it's like this for everybody else, but these 3 stages of growth, the cycles they keep cycling through, is healing, transformation, and transcendence. And I learned that life is a constant cycle of death and rebirth. I learned to embrace this through acceptance and surrender. My heart opened like never before, and I started to embody godlike qualities such as compassion, humility, forgiveness, and divine love. I felt my connection to God and to everything. My old self was dying, and I was giving birth to the woman that I was meant to be. My consciousness expanded and my intuition increased. My soulmate Daniel and I realized that we were brought together for a purpose greater than ourselves. So we got married and we moved to Los Angeles. When we moved to LA, I ended up getting a job at a raw vegan restaurant in downtown LA. So the first time I went raw only lasted for 8 months. So I got this job at a raw vegan restaurant in hopes to go back raw, which I did. I finally transitioned after 8 years. 8 years of struggling and battling, eating disorders, my insecurities, my demons, everything to get back to this lifestyle. And every single day of those 8 years of trying to go back to raw, I would wake up with the intention, like, today's the day I'm going raw. And I never, ever gave up because I realized how amazing I felt on this diet, this trend, this lifestyle. So I had another oh, whew, okay. I had another profound transformation, and this second time around, it was very, very profound. People started asking me, what I was doing, asking for advice. I did like a extended juice fast, and yeah. But I endured even more hardships that were a huge catalyst for my spiritual awakening even further. I kept unfolding and peeling back the layers. I just felt as if I was being purified in order to be ready for what God had planned for me to do in this world. And I kept saying, like, use me, God, use me. So I switched to a yoga studio. I ended up growing even further, learning so many lessons, diving deeper into my journey of self-discovery. And people kept commenting, saying, wow, you look really young, blah, 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 what are you doing? And I realized, I knew at that point I was ready to share my message with the world. So what I discovered in my quest for the fountain of youth is that youthfulness is a state of mind and true beauty is a state of being. The more I learned to live in the present moment, the more I connected back to my childlike nature. The present moment is timeless. We are eternal beings. Aging and deterioration are afflictions of the mind. We are as young and as beautiful as we believe ourselves to be. So my name is Jamie Love. You can find me on Instagram, agelessbeauty143. Thank you so much for having me.
And Jamie, would you mention too that you also have a raw meetup group in Los Angeles?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So if you're in Los Angeles, I have a raw vegan meetup group. Our next meetup is going to be this Sunday in Santa Monica at 1 p.m. and then followed by optional salsa dancing. It's going to be super fun. So if you're in LA, come check us out, and then check my page, my link in my bio for future raw food meetups.
And where can they find that?
Ageless Beauty 143.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jamie, for coming by today. And of course, your story is extremely important. Everybody has a story to tell, and there's a gold mine of stories. And that's the whole purpose of this Spotlight podcast. So next week, please join me when we welcome Kuka Russell. She will be here next week. Those of you who know her, I'm sure you'll be really, really glad to hear that she will be coming on. And then the week after, we're going to be having Star Simmons of Be Kind app. So I look forward to everyone joining us again next week live for 15 minutes. Jamie, thank you. And to everyone else watching, remember, do not discount your story. You'll be surprised how important it is. Thanks, everyone, and bye for now.